I apologize for there's a bit of frivolity around the time of this thing for various reasons. I moved through 3 time zones inside of 4 days, which confused me. And then, ladies and gents, I apologize for there's a bit of frivolity around the time. I apologize for various reasons. I moved through 3 time zones inside of 4 days, which rank amateur, didn't switch off his own live feed. And then the clocks went back, which was bloody confusing. Now, if you are tuning into this because you are an expert on ancient alchemical practices, you are going to be very disappointed. This predominantly is to help people who are dealing with trauma, PTSD, and complex PTSD. There will be some talk of alchemical practice as it relates to practical psychology. I want to preface this, though, very, very briefly, as if I can say anything briefly, by saying that this is a really, really strange experience for me. One of the weirdest experiences I've ever had. I designed a talk over the last 3 days that I'm going to deliver this evening. And I did a final practice of it today. And my views on alchemy were, it was like, I thought it was maybe sort of like medieval, maybe a little bit earlier magical practice, and that these people genuinely thought that they were going to convert lead to gold through transmutation, and that I was going to say that was one element of it, but that probably to the initiates, the real thing that they were doing was pure spiritual and psychological practice. Well, I got a bit of a shock and then I went through how it related to Islamic philosophy and Sufism, the Vedic texts, even got into the Chinese philosophy and the Zen tradition with it, and wanted to talk about Hermetic principles as well. Yeah, okay, that's already there. That's already written. That's already out there. This isn't a theory. This is what alchemy actually is. But I only found that out today, this afternoon, by reading up on it properly. And I was like, oh, alchemy actually is what we're already doing in the strictest sense. And you go, well, I don't believe in magic. Well, a lot of the people who believed in alchemy didn't believe in magic either. Alchemy was like a broad term for a variety of disciplines, but it's where chemistry comes from. Chemistry and alchemy have the same root. Alchemy is Arabic, alchemy. Nobody knows what the original word was, an ancient Greek word that's chemis or chemistros, which might mean pour together, or it might refer to the land of Egypt itself, and al just means the. So I got a bit of a shock when I found that out. I was like, oh, okay, this isn't a metaphor, this isn't an allegory, this is literally what alchemy is, what I'm going to discuss with you now. Obviously, I've got my own spin on it. So I will be going through, there's going to be 7 subjects. I'm going to go through them as rapidly as I can do that with my motor mouth, and then I'll take some questions. The first one is going to be really, really briefly, alchemy, what it is. The second part, that in order for me to give you what I want later on, that you need to have an understanding of, is the Eastern elements of it, which I'm much more comfortable with. I just feel much more confident talking about that. The Zen tradition is not raised in traditional alchemy, but the Vedic tradition is, and obviously the Zen tradition has some of its roots in the Vedic traditions. The next section I'm going to get into with you in part 3 is that the gold is not gold and the jewel is not the jewel. The 4th section will be one transmutation that we can all start working on over the next week and the next month. And I'm going to be asking you whether you're keeping up with this, whether you're doing it, but you can start straight away. You can start doing alchemy now, and it will improve your life if you do dramatically. So that's part 4. I'm going to get into more of the different elements of how this relates to healing from Cptsd. Thank you all very much who answered the poll today, yesterday, saying that you wanted woo and Cptsd healing. Well, now you're going to get what you asked for. There's an element that I want to cover with you that is more of a philosophical element that relates to grieving, which will be in part 6. called Life, a Boat and a Stream. And then finally, we're going to be looking at what the Magnum Opus is in traditional alchemy, Jung's perspective on that, and how that relates to the work that we are doing. Can you hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up on the hearing this or not. Oops. So excited, haven't really brought the mic close enough. I'm going to bet that this is better, right? Yes. Okay, but you could already hear me. Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, let's get straight into this. Most people didn't come here for a history lesson, but we do need to cover what alchemy actually is, and I'm going to do this inside of 2 minutes. Really, really straightforward. Okay, let's do this. And in fact, we can make this larger. And here's the important bits of it. Alchemists attempted to purify, mature, and perfect certain materials. This you already know. This is important. They were particularly looking at the transmutation of base metals into noble metals like gold. So I just thought it was all lead into gold, but it's actually any base metal into any noble metal. The creation of an elixir of immortality, which actually we'll be talking about later on. The creation of panaceas able to cure any disease, and the development of a universal solvent. The perfection of the human body and soul was thought to permit or result from the alchemical Magnum Opus. And in the Hellenistic and Western mystery tradition, the achievement of gnosis, which is the achievement of knowingness. It comes from different Hellenistic religions and philosophies. It's best known for Gnosticism, where it signifies a knowledge or insight into humanity's real nature as divine, leading to the deliverance of the divine spark within humanity from the constraints of earthly existence. Yeah. So we said we would do a woo one. I'm going to resolve the whole of the issue of existence in the next 25 minutes. No, I'm not going to do that. But it's really, really interesting looking into this, and I'm excited to see that like this is not for this channel and for what I do and for what you guys are interested in. Alchemy is not an allegory. It's not a metaphor. It's actually what we're doing. So psychology and psychotherapy, taking trauma and hopefully delivering it into higher consciousness, is alchemical. Taking trauma and using that to raise consciousness, as we see in traditions like Buddhism, is the alchemical work, is the Magnum Opus. So that's what alchemy is. There's a lot more history to it. I probably will do another video on it in the future because it's really, really interesting. There's a couple of things I wanted to cover with you early on. They're Eastern concepts. Now, in the Zen tradition, which I have mentioned before on this channel, it's like a very refined, very pure form of Buddhist thinking, but without any sort of like heaven and hell and spirits and demons and anything else. Zen is only dealing with suchness. It's kind of pretentious sounding, but it's only dealing with the essence of that which is and nothing but that which is, and trying to clear your mind so you can see that which is. You've heard me reference before Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh. I think he's a Vietnamese Zen teacher who famously quotes, when you don't have a toothache and you are relieved from pain, you experience pleasure. When you've had a toothache and the toothache stops, the release from pain creates pleasure. So why not just be grateful that you don't have a toothache right now, if you don't, and enjoy the same pleasure anyway? It's like a very, very basic idea. There is this concept in the Eastern traditions. It's right there through the Vedic traditions, Zen, Chan, the Taoist philosophies, Confucianism, and when they're blended as well, of the refinement of the mind, the refinement of the spirit, and trying to get to this place where the senses, the awareness are sharp and they become more precious. They become more effective. They become more honed. They become more valuable. They become of a higher quality, you know, in the sense of a thing. A thing can be of low quality if it's not very well made, or if it's experienced amazing levels of craftsmanship, then it's of a higher quality, right? So your consciousness as well could be of low quality, or it could be refined over time through the practice of meditation, through fasting, through chanting, whatever it is, and it becomes more refined. You could say that that, again, is alchemy. Hold that thought. So in the original talk that I was going to give, naively, what I wrote was that the gold obviously is not gold, that these are code words. This is only for the initiates. But no, it's out there. The gold is not the gold. And especially if you look at the Hermetic tradition of alchemy, absolutely nobody really believes that it's actually about the transmutation of base metals into gold. And the jewel is not the jewel. Now, when you have a diamond in its raw form, unrefined, it's not particularly pretty. It's a bit of a mess. It needs to be chipped away. It needs to be cleaned. That's what makes it become more precious. You have a concept in Buddhism called the Diamond Sutra. So we're thinking now about things that are of great worth, things that have great value, things that are extremely important, things that are above and beyond the normal baseline level of everything. So the word base, basic, it used to have a meaning that has a connotation connected with evil and with evil, sinfulness, your baser instincts. So you could accuse somebody of being base. Your behavior is base. You're coming from the root chakras. You're coming from an earthy place. It's not very refined what you're doing. So we're looking for refinement here. So the alchemists had their gold. In the Eastern traditions, there was this notion again and again of the jewel of consciousness, and you have the Diamond Sutra. Let me pull this up for you. Now we will go full inception. Okay, so in the Diamond Sutra, which is considered the perfection of wisdom, there is a teaching that takes place. It's a discourse between the Buddha to a senior monk called Subhuti. And its major themes are Anatman, the not self, the emptiness of all phenomena, and the liberation of all beings without attachment, and the importance of spreading and teaching the Diamond Sutra itself. You have here this concept, the emancipation from the fundamental ignorance of not knowing how to experience reality as it is. Remember this. It's the emancipation, meaning you're enslaved and then you're freed from the fundamental ignorance of not knowing how to experience reality as it is. As though in and of itself, that is a cure. In and of itself, that is a pill. That is, well, I guess in this context, it's the red pill. It's the knowing how to experience reality exactly as it is. That becomes its own cure. Okay. As far as all dharmas are concerned, all of them are dharma-less. That is why they are called all dharmas. There are these statements that are made. Those so-called streams of thought have been preached as streamless. That is why they are called streams of thought. So there's these statements that seem to negate each other, but it's about moving beyond the attachment to conditioned phenomena out there in the world. All conditioned All conditioned phenomena are like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, a shadow, like dew or a flash of lightning. Thus we shall perceive them. Okay. Are you still with me, guys? So the gold is not the gold. The jewel is not the jewel. It's not that you're supposed to be trying to actually get a thing. This is not about object fetishism. This is about trying to move past object fetishism. Okay. So, bonk. If you're trying to move past object fetishism is where you place importance on things as though, and then to fetishize in psychoanalytic theory means to imbue something with a power that it doesn't intrinsically have, imbuing the material world with a power that it doesn't intrinsically have, right? So you get stuck because it's really it's compelling to the mind. There's a thing, and then you can focus on the thing, and then the thing has all this power, and you're trying to get the thing because the thing will then make you feel happy, like pursuing gold or pursuing literal diamonds. But what's the point of pursuing literal gold or literal diamonds? What's the point of actually trying to get hold of a thing that you think has power that's going to make you, I don't know, that's what do you think it's going to give you? Ultimately, I think the thing that we are, the thing, it's not actually a thing. The thing is not even a thing. What we're going for is a feeling, because there's nothing else. There's nothing else to this. Once you've gotten past all of your bullshit and narratives about why you want such and such a thing or such and such an experience, it can only ever be a feeling. If you say, imagine you say, I want a red Ferrari, and I go, okay, I'm going to jam you on a desert island with no water and no food, and a red Ferrari with no fuel in it that you can't drive. You got your red Ferrari. You're happy now. You're like, no, that's not what I really wanted. Well, what did you really want? You said red Ferrari. Me give red Ferrari. You not happy. Why you not happy? What problem have? What problem make? And you go, well, it's not what I wanted. And I'm like, well, then tell me what you want. And one of our problems as human beings is we can't say what we want. But it's worse than not being able to say what we want. It's that we cannot conceptualize what we want, because actually we don't really have a very good idea of what would make us happy. Happy, peaceful, content, feeling of connection. What are all these things? Feelings. Think now of a thing you want, or even an experience you want, a holiday you want to go on, a house you would love to live in, a person you would love to meet. What would it give you? And then like think it through. Like, this gives me, is it status? Well, what does status give you? What does a car give you? Well, you can still only drive to the shops and back to get the same stuff that you needed anyway. And Ferraris are really low. If you hit a speed bump, it's really not convenient, apparently. I've never driven one, but I've heard it's bad. So what do you want? You want feelings. We're actually at the subjective level, at the final frontier of human experience internally, is not thought, is not stuff, is not things, is not experiences. It's how it makes us feel. There's nothing else. So I mean the Spartan Life Coach Project, Diamond Sutra, our alchemy is in feelings, is in the emotional literacy, is in altering emotional states. That's the alchemy, from lead to gold. And this goes beyond trauma to higher consciousness, and actually to a place where you're saying, I am going to commit to working on living a better life. This is the great work, and actually aligning myself spiritually with a larger purpose. with the big purpose. Wowee. I just thought I'd get some advice on how to get up in the morning and get over my Cptsd, and now apparently I've got to align with the larger universe. I didn't sign up for this. I'm going to see what's on Netflix. So if it's feelings, then, and we accept, I've just told you what alchemy is. I've just told you historically what it is. I've given you the Eastern concept of alchemy, which is about the refinement of consciousness. And we're seeking to attain something that's precious. And what is gold or diamonds? They're rare, or at least the diamond industry has bought them all and hidden them all in a safe somewhere in London so that we think that they are rare. And that's what makes them precious, is that they're rare. That's what makes a metal or a thing precious. And if it's been refined and it's been subjected to craftsmanship and it's better, then it is, in the language of the alchemist, noble. It is more noble. But the gold is not gold. The jewel is not the jewel. What we're actually going for are higher states of being rooted in our feelings. So it's ultimately about how we want to feel. So here's one transmutation for us all to work on now. Not trauma, not pain, a state that all of us in this consumerist, materialist, individualized, hyper-competitive, hyper-narcissistic culture that we now live in, we'll all feel it. I struggle with it because we're the spoiled brats of the first world. Entitlement. Let's not look at trauma today. Let's look at something we can, everybody watching this who's they don't know really, haven't experienced trauma. We've all experienced entitlement. And what should we seek to transmute it to? Okay. When do you feel best? Here's two questions for you. When do you feel best in your life? When? Can you think back? Like, when did you feel just so good? When have you felt good? When do you feel good? What do you imagine will make you feel good in the future? But what can you reliably say has already made you feel really, really good? For some people, it's their kids. For some people, it's their grandkids. For some people, it's their cats, it's their dogs. For some people, it really is things. You know, you can buy, I got myself the iPhone 11 doobity boo. And I went, this is a thing and it's a good thing. And I like this thing. This is a good thing. Or, you know, I buy something else and I go, this is a good thing. And when I considered it, I was like, if I want a thing that's a desirable thing, this is not your answer. This is my answer. You might have a different one. I want to be like, I love this thing. I love this thing. This is a cool thing. If it's a human, then not a thing. I just love that. Human. I appreciate this thing or this person, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that they're in my life. I'm grateful that this thing or this experience or this person is in my life. Love, appreciation, and gratitude. That's when I feel best. That's when I feel switched on. So I had this weird experience today where I did a talk and I was like, well, it's all allegorical, but, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then I read up on it and I went, oh no, that's not allegorical. That's literally what alchemy historically and the academics who study alchemy, they all agree on this. That's absolutely what it is. Then I went out and I came back and I had this really strong experience, like a mini Satori experience, because it got really quiet here and then it started to rain gently. And I went outside and I was just stood in the rain. And I was like, oh, this is intense, man. But I've been here before. I've been here for a while and I didn't notice it before. But today's my last day. I'm moving out tomorrow. Tomorrow is the death of this. Tomorrow is the end. Tomorrow is the apocalypse of this experience. It finishes. It's done. It's over. And with I wasn't like, oh, make sure you appreciate it before you leave. Just totally naturally, I went into this state of love and appreciation and gratitude. And so I went and sat and I listened to the rain and I looked at the clouds, and then over the field, some birds were flying. And I had the thought, it's a real privilege to be here. It's a real privilege to be alive. It's a real privilege to be experiencing this unfolding right now in front of me. That's what other writers, God, I can't remember the guy's name, who's something Wilson, possibly Colin Wilson, called a peak experience. I had a peak experience today. I had a weird, synchronistic experience, and then a couple of hours later, a peak experience. And I thought, there's nothing better than this. There's nothing better than this in this world, in this fractured, imperfect, material world. This is it. This is it. And this is a moment of alchemy where I've gone from entitlement, like, oh, I can't get a signal on my phone, or there's traffic, we have to wait 3 minutes longer than I would have done if there wasn't, it's going to take 4 minutes out of my life. Meanwhile, living in one of the most beautiful places on earth, as a member of one of the richest nations on earth, really having no fear of being killed at random, which is nice, or dying of some weird medieval disease for which there is a cure. So the transmutation we can all work on is moving from entitlement to gratitude, and entitlement to love and appreciation, and saying the words, this is a privilege. That's how I feel about my nephews now. It's a real privilege. It's good. It's a good thing. But it's if I don't appreciate them and that, it's the same as it not existing. So I have to have the discipline and the structure and the commitment to say, this is happening, and I love this, and I love them, and I appreciate them, and I'm grateful because I had this experience, because it ends tomorrow. Tomorrow I leave. The me that was me whilst I was here will never come back here again. If I visit again here next year, I won't be this me. I'll be a different me. It's really done. It's really finished. And it is for everybody, every day, all the time. Every time you hermetically seal your eyelids in your hermetically sealed room, and go to sleep, that's it. It's finished. That day is finished. That version of you is finished. A new one is reborn in the morning. That's where you wake up and go, oh, how wonderful. It's so great to be alive and reborn. I'm sure you do. So the transmutation for us all to work on is that movement from entitlement to gratitude. And you will not successfully do it if you're spending a lot of time online, because it's just entitlement land, enlightenment land. I wish that it were. Would that it were. You will not do that. So you must be spending less time online. You do need to be spending more time with those things that you love, and focused on the things that you appreciate and that you feel grateful for. That is your alchemical work for this week. Next week, we'll do different alchemical work. Next week, we'll save the world. The Cptsd healing part of this, and the woo part of this, alchemy in its essence is aligned with alchemy and Christianity, sat side by side quite happily for centuries, apparently. And a lot of upright church-going people said, no, alchemy is completely in alignment with Christianity. I was like, oh, I thought they would have been burning them. But no, they thought, no, this is right. You should take that which is base and make it godly. You should take that which is base and make it noble. The Christians believe that. The Muslims believe that. The Sufis believe that. There's a text here, we don't have time to get into it tonight, but written by a Persian philosopher who said that he wrote an alchemical text. And he said that the purpose of life is to provide service to others, to be unattached to outcome, and to get closer to God. And the Buddhist said the purpose of life, to experience alchemy and to go from attachment to non-attachment, is to give service to others, be unattached to form, and to get closer to your own Buddha nature, your own divinity. And apparently the Christians believed something along the same lines. When there is trauma, there is awareness. Where there's pain, there's awareness. So trauma in and of itself intrinsically leads to higher consciousness, because it leads to awareness. To the extent that you weren't aware of something and then you are now operating at a level of higher consciousness. I know it doesn't necessarily always feel like that. The people who haven't experienced narcissistic abuse, well, they're not sat here watching this fucking weird video, are they? They don't know the weird stuff that you now know. They don't. You go to a pub with them. You go to a pub with your mates and be like, do you know anything about Hermes Trismegistus? Would you like to talk about Hermetic principles and alchemy? And they'll be like, no, not really. Would you like some cheese and onion crisps and half a pint of lager top? And you'll go, oh yeah, okay. I guess I'll just do that instead. Consuming food and alcohol, by the way, that keeps you in a base psychological and physical state. Consuming food that isn't even strictly speaking food, strictly speaking. And it does slow you down. Like the whole fasting thing, it does tend to kind of liberate the thoughts a little bit. And when you eat, your blood goes to your stomach, and then you come, you're back down again. You're back in the body. You're based out in the body. I think it's going to be of merit to move beyond seeing it, the Cptsd healing thing, as I must recover from trauma. Actually, that phrases everything, or not phrases, but frames for the unconscious everything in the negative. You are wounded, you must recover, and you must recover because there is trauma, and the implications because there's evil in the world. If your goal is to transmute base emotions to noble higher states of consciousness, appreciation and love and gratitude, that gives you a positive thing, a positive frame for the unconscious to focus on. Yes or no? Answer that one in the comments. You just put in response to number 5, your question at number 5, yes, I agree, or no, I think that's nonsense, you can say. It's a more positive frame. It's going to help a lot more to think in terms of taking from base, taking from crude, and making it refined, and making it something better, and making it, level up. We have this tech. We have this technology here. We have this community here. We have this amazing free capacity to connect with each other. Let's start using it properly for that. So the Cptsd healing part is to reframe from recovery from trauma to seeking to alchemically transmute base level people, experiences, places, anything, feelings, into something that is of higher consciousness and is of a greater nobility. And the recurrent theme across the geographical locations and across the periods of time that I looked at, when we were looking across alchemy across the globe, is there was this element of service to others. I mean, we are tribal creatures, right? We do need each other, and we do need to contribute to feel like we have our purpose in the clan and our place in the community. I don't want to get maudlin. Part of my experience today, I think, is part of my own personal grieving process. And as I said to you in the stream yesterday, knowing that this is temporary and knowing that it doesn't last for a very long time probably is the fire under the bomb that we're supposed to experience when we manifest here. That means that there's a drive to find our life's intention and our life's true purpose. I can't really, I don't think anybody can really help you get out of this life. The modern term we use now is simulation, but as you saw, if you want to go and look up the Diamond Sutra page, you can see people were talking in terms of the simulation was the world of illusion. And they just said, don't be attached to it. Yeah, you're here, you're alive now, but don't get attached to it. Don't get attached to the world of form. It's only a simulation. What I can help you to do, and what other people can help you to do, is to guide your boat down the stream, to move it around rocks, to move it in a better direction. That side of the stream is kind of murky and has got mosquitoes hovering over it. That side is pretty sunny and there's some other cool people in cool boats over there. Why don't you guide yourself down there? I can't take you back up the stream. Nobody can. I can't reverse time. I can't accelerate the pace of this of the stream. Nobody can. My personal belief is that that will never happen. Science will never crack that particular nut because it's outside the rules of this game that we're playing. You've just gone to the. It's like running to the. If any of you play video games, it's like running to the edge of a map and then just banging your head against a really badly pixelated wall that you're not supposed to look at. That's why it's all pixely and shit, because the designer's like, nobody's supposed to look here. You're trying to jump off the edge of the map. You can't. There's nowhere else to go. You've run out. Time travel, that's that. There's no time travel. Not in this simulation. So the stream is time. The stream is your life. You're moving forward. You can't move backwards. All you can do, you can't even helicopter the boat and do amazing 360s and jump around. You can't do that. But you can guide the boat on the stream that you're on. The only people who escape the matrix, the only people who actually literally get out of the, if they put their boat on the shore and get out the boat and just walk off, this is my personal opinion. This is not alchemy. This is based on another synchronicity from the last few days. That's death. When we have young masters, men, women, who have attained and they deliver some amazing code-breaking, matrix unveiling message, they tend to die young. And you say, oh, it's the drugs, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. So by coincidence the other night, I ran across the writings of a Indian nationalist called Swami Vivekananda. And there's two people who I had this experience with. One is the Pharaoh Akhenaton, and the second one, that was in 2009, I had this experience. And then in 2019, I had this experience reading Swami Vivekananda, which is, after reading 2 or 3 sentences, I was like, that person is not a fraud. That's not a fake. That's within like 1 or 2 sentences. I was like, there's such clarity of thinking in every single word in that sentence that this person is the real deal. Let me just read you something from Swami Vivekananda. This is the type of thing I'm talking about. Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, external and internal. There's a lot that you could say just on that. Do this either by work, the great work, the Magnum Opus, or worship, or mental discipline, or philosophy, by one or more or all of these, and be free. This is a man coming from the Hindu philosophy, speaking of emancipation. He goes on, this is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas or rituals or books or temples or forms are but secondary details. So I was like, wow, fuck, that guy is like, that's it. It's so sharp. It's so pure. Wow. That's another level of, that's a man, that's an entity in socks, because I'm sure he had to wear socks, coming from a higher level of consciousness. So I went and looked him up. When did he die? Age 39. How did he die? Meditated, went to talk to his disciples quietly, helped them with some of their meditative practices, says, I'm off to my room to meditate now. And that was it. Passed away during meditation. So that's it. I'm going now. I'm done with this particular stream. I'm done with this boat. I'm going to leave it at the side and I'm going to walk off. That's the only way out. I think when you see the, this Gnostic metaphor, the Matrix movie, when Neo wakes up into the real world, which is the guts of the machinery of the Matrix, that's death. He died. He's dead now. he's out of the stream. That's what death is. So you know, it's a topic for another day, but like when you're talking about what do I think death is, I think you just got out the boat. I just think you got out the stream. I don't think you're gone. You're just not in this stream right now. You're probably in one of the other streams that you were that you were in simultaneously at the same time, in the multiple quantum realities that we all inhabit all at once. Grieving is important. Knowledge of death is important. It's finite. It's finite. It's going to be over. So do what you're supposed to do. Get on with it. Get on with the work. The Magnum Opus, the great work, is to move people towards human divinity. And this is the little bit that I wanted to mention about Jung. Always been a bit like about Jung. There's another thing I learned about the anima and animus possession. I thought that's good. This also is important. Jung spoke a lot about individuation, and he spoke about it in the context of alchemy and in the context of waking up. Jung's individuation is Buddha's enlightenment, but using Greek and Egyptian and more Western and Jewish mystic language and concepts. That's individuation, is Buddhahood, is the waking up, is gnosis, is you know, any sort of ultimate transcendence, but it's the last transcendence. It's the last thing. Individuation in normal psychology is what happens when you break away from your mother's breast, when you break away from your father's rule, and you physically become more independent from your mother and father, and you run away from them. You come back to them, but you run away. You come back and you run away. And every time you run away, you run a little further and further. And that's called growing up, and that's called individuation. If that's messed with, then the person will develop an attachment disorder. What is it in this context? What are we individuating from? Do you remember I said that was in Encinitas and I never filmed it, but I wish I had, because I had this really good, clear moment. It was like an acid trip flashback, and I was talking about this flashback where I'd seen something like a Native American style or African style, like big rug material painting thing that was just humans coming down in lines. Humans, but I'm tripping, so they're moving and flickering, and but they're symbolic, they're representations of people, and the representations of their name in some ancient script that I can't understand, but I do in that moment. And they're flowing downward, and it's just chaos, mother, daughter, father, son, mother, daughter, father, son, mother, daughter, father, son, mother, over and 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 over. Chaos, karma, dharma, all kinds is going on. And I thought, wow, man. When prophets come, they tell us one thing, really, in essence. They point to that and they say, stop it. Stop. And then you go, how? And then they give you some teachings that are supposed to help you stop that shit. Stop it. That is unconsciousness. That's the boiling mass of the non-conscious, the shadow self, the monster, the beast, the animalistic base self, trying to wake up, trying to, and not being able to. One of the most horrifying experiences I had in my life in hospital, and I've had some bad ones, was seeing a close friend of mine, his big brother, who was, they were from a very wealthy family, very, very wealthy English family. And the brother was a bit of a rebel, and he boxed and he had tattoos, and I was like 15 when I knew him, and he was big and muscly, and he didn't want to be an accountant like everybody else in the family. He wanted to be a blacksmith because he fucking loved Vikings. So he did that and became a blacksmith. And one day he was out driving, and he had been drinking and driving, and he had a collision, and he damaged his body and he damaged his brain, and he, in intensive care, caught pneumonia, and he was in a really, really bad way. So they induced a coma. Now, in the movies, when they induce a coma, that person is in a coma. They're slack, and there's just a tube, and that's it. Well, my friend's brother was not in that state. It was really awful, really awful. They brought me in out of desperation because I'd spent a lot of time talking to him about Tai Chi. Oh, he was trying to wake up. I've got Snotties on hand because I've had a cold. He was trying to wake up and he couldn't. And he was half conscious and half responsive. And they wanted me to talk to him. So I talked to him and he was trying to talk back, but he was in an induced coma. It was horrendous. And there were flashes on his face of recognition and micro expressions. And he was cycling through, he was confused and he was frustrated because he was trying to be there and he couldn't do it. He recovered. He recovered. He was always a much quieter man after that. But sometimes when I see people now, especially the mass of humanity, like people keep saying to me, "Oh, why don't you do a video about your impressions of America?" I'm like, please don't make me do that because I have mainly American followers and I don't want to piss them off. But when I go to America, that's often what I see. I see a country, a nation of people trapped inside of a fever dream, trying to wake up, trying to respond, trying to be there, but they're not. It's not. They're never quite there. So they do like impressions of people who are there to sort of fake it till they make it. And more broadly, sometimes when I'm looking at the mass of humanity, I'm seeing this twitching effort to try and wake up. I can't do it. In the Matrix, it was horrendous, but it only lasted, we were getting the film 30 seconds, pops the pipes out, goes, whoa, I'm in a pod, bro, and wakes up, and he has no eyebrows and no hair, and he's covered in goo because the machines bukkakied him in his sleep. They're rough like that, and it's over. But for this guy, it wasn't over, and that went on for him. I think it was a while. It was like a week or so. He was in that state, and it was horrendous to see. That is the effort where humanity is up to, I think, with this thing of like the karma, the dharma, the constant thrashing, unconscious pain, and then we just wound each other in the thrashing. Son to father, to father to son, to son to father, father, son, on and on and on, and then person to person. I said this in another video the other day. Every time one person is traumatized because of memory and imagination in humanity, that human will cast that trauma on probably 1,000 times. So I'm not a mathematician, but I don't know when it becomes 1,000,000, but I guess it's within like 5 or 6 people. It has to be fast, right? We pass that on, and that's where we live. So it's important. It's really important, especially because the world's not in a good way. I swallowed it like a man. It'll come out later, inevitably. I have to do an emotional literacy exercise. My concern is that I see things going in a very, very bad direction. And we have an opportunity. We have a responsibility to do something about it collectively. But it's not political. It's not going to be the next best t-shirt to wear or the next fucking thing you do online to posture your virtue and to signal to others how fucking clever you are. That's not good enough. It's not good enough. We have to do better, and we have to start soon. Otherwise, we're going to be fucked. Royally fucked. And I think that this is the best way. I think it's the best way. It should be done by the individual. It should be a sincere effort to elevate consciousness. We all suffer from this. We all have this. Cptsd is not like some special niche thing. This is just humanity. People hurt, and then they hurt other people out of their unconsciousness, out of this, just the momentum. This thing has its own momentum. It has its own power. It has its own movement, and we have to stop it somehow, because this is it. Like, there's nobody's coming. It's us or nothing. So we have to awaken from the fever dream, and try and be good little entities in socks. And now I shall take questions. I'd like your questions to be one sentence long and to end in a squiggly question mark sign. Oh, the Brooklyn Way says, this is why emotional literacy is so important. Yeah. The emotional literacy, if you accept the idea that there's nothing but feelings and that the end goal of everything is feelings, then the emotional literacy and the disciplined work around that in the alchemical structure of things would be the Philosopher's Stone. That's the one key thing, is to become au fait with the feelings, because that's the end goal anyway. That's the gold you're going for. Those are the diamonds you're going for. Is the ultimate, is love and appreciation and gratitude and feeling like you it's a privilege to be here. So yeah, the emotional literacy is really, really key. How do I heal from CPTSD, narcissistic abuse from a parent? I have a book called How to Stop Emotional Flashbacks, which you can get for free over on SpartanLifeCoach.com. And that's one place to start. And the other is to develop your emotional literacy. And that will help you to heal from CPTSD and narcissistic abuse. How to choose a niche online. Is CPTSD a new cornerstone in the mental health world? Yeah, possibly. I think, like, in my humble opinion, Pete Walker's book on CPTSD really does solve like 95% of the issues that people go to. The issues that 95% of people go to counselors and mental health practitioners for would be resolved through an understanding of CPTSD in his work. How important is forgiveness? Well, people get very hashtag triggered when you talk about this. I think because in in other parts of the world, like forgiveness is associated with like a religious ideology. So it's a stick that's beaten over the head, that people are beaten over the head with. I'd say in this way, excuse me, I must mute you. You mustn't hear the sounds of me sucking fluid through my face hole. You can either carry the rage and the resentment and the anger and the desire for vengeance, and you have the right to see where that takes you. It's your life, it's your body, it's your brain, it's your heart, it's your experience. Or you can seek not to carry that stuff. To me, forgiveness from that perspective would be, my choice is to not carry that. I've seen what it does to people. I believe it kills. I believe resentment specifically actually physically kills people. I've seen too much evidence of that in my own life with people that I've known, family members, it kills. So I say don't carry it, but people think forgiveness means like, oh, you're saying that what the person did was okay, or no, to me, it's not. It's just, I'm not carrying that anymore. And what that person does, sometimes if you wanted to be really woo with it, it's probably worth getting into like a visualization space where you have attachment to that person. So you can actually, and they might even be on some fucking dimension. I don't know. There might actually be some sort of attachments, psychic attachments. You should visualize removing them so they don't have any hooks in you anymore. So there's no tendrils that are touching you anymore from that person. That to me is also forgiveness, where you are physically, psychologically, and emotionally saying, I do not want anything else to do with this person. I don't want them in my heart. I don't want them in my mind. I'm not responsible for them. I'm not thinking about them. I just let them go. I wish to be totally detached from this person. That to me is forgiveness. And to that extent, it's necessary if you are worried about getting diseases related to rage and resentment. Regular ayahuasca work used to work through Cptsd. I don't know, mate. I'm going to do ayahuasca for the first time in a month, so I'll get back to you on that. How do I deal with Cptsd and BPD where I can't feel anything but numbness? Not feeling anything but numbness, I would associate more with depression, and probably like a pronounced freeze response. You're probably in a state of trauma, quite emotionally illiterate. So I would be looking to work on your emotional literacy so you can reconnect with how you feel and then actually acknowledge how you feel. Say, hey, these are my feelings. This is how I feel, and that's okay. And then you can transmute the numbness into some sort of feelingness. How do you heal deep abandonment issues? Probably if you're experiencing emotional flashbacks around attachment and abandonment, then you would work on stopping the emotional flashbacks. And then you would need to get to know yourself a little bit better emotionally. So you get to the point where you feel as though you can connect with somebody safely. It's all about safe connection, whether you're allowed to connect safely with somebody or not. Kaywa asks, is feeling negative feelings from doing the emotional healing work going to make the pain less? I don't know what emotional healing work you've done, and I don't know what the negative feelings are. Negative feelings is kind of a nebulous term. So I could cover a lot of ground. I really, really wouldn't want to say. I'd need to know what the work is that you're doing and what the negative feelings are. And I dare not advise you without that information. Sorry. Lisa says, I believe my ovarian cancer was caused from PTSD from my divorce I was going through. There is, I think, going to be shown to be a connection between trauma and emotion, and a direct connection with certain types of trauma, certain types of emotion, and certain illnesses in time. Do NPD people get better from MDMA? I wouldn't think so. I would think that experience, much like everything else, is just rebound into their own worldview. But I've never seen or heard of somebody with NPD getting an MDA therapy in a clinical context. How to deal with silent treatment. I meant to say this at the beginning when asking questions. I worked this out last night. I get confuddled by how to deal questions, because if you say how to deal da 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 da, I normally have to ask the question, what's your objective? So here, I don't know what your objective is. If you want to reconnect with him and have him not do that, then I would be exploring the possibility of opening up channels of communication that start with, hey, I see you're doing this thing where you give me the silent treatment. Do you think that we could find another way of resolving conflict without acting like surly 4-year-old children? That's how I would go with it. I would love to have nothing to do with my abuser. However, she is in the late stages of Alzheimer's and I must care for her, right? I don't know. I don't know what your situation is. I don't know whether you must or must not. These choices in life must be made very, very, very carefully, and after reflecting on them properly. Do neural pathways heal when you learn how to feel safe, or vice versa? I don't think, hi Kimberly, I don't think neural pathways are damaged in that sense. They will die, or grow, they'll atrophy, or they'll grow. They will reconnect when you learn to feel safe. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, they will reconnect and reform into new patterns. Definitely. Feeling safe is extremely important. Victoria asks, is it possible that suffering is actually a tunnel to higher couscousness? Yes, you can have all the couscous when you've suffered long enough. Well, there are some people who say it's the only route. I don't think it is. I don't think suffering is good or righteous or worthy in and of itself. I think suffering is bad. I think pain is bad, but it is here. And it seems to be that when we are speaking of humans, that some of us, myself included, only really learn in the face of massive, overwhelming agony, because otherwise we're too stubborn to do anything else. I do a lot of listening therapy casually, but not convinced it works so well on myself. Is it just lack of patience with myself? I am not sure. I'm not really sure what listening therapy is. How do you respond to constant exasperation? The exasperation I produce in others, laughter usually, I mock them, begin dancing, further exasperate them. I run off, and I imagine my jester's bells jingling as I run off. I don't even know what this piece of advice is in response to, but Burgett says pee in his shoes and see if he speaks again. Oh, this will be the silent treatment. Just pee in his shoes. Heis first says, how do I get in contact with you for online therapy? I haven't offered online coaching for a couple of years now, I'm afraid. I stopped a few years ago because it was not good for me. It did not help me. Gabo Mate, yes, another ayahuasca partaker. Yeah, Gabo Mate's taken it. Peripatetic goat, have you had recurring dreams? Yes, I was very young and had a dream where I was a ball in a room with one door. Going through the door, I transformed. Vulnerable in one, abrasive in the other. That's interesting. Very interesting. I used to do a lot of dream interpretation. I think it's interesting. I think it's useful. I think when you dream, the unconscious sometimes is just throwing up the detritus of the day and filtering it, storing it, trying to figure out what's useful and what's not. And we get access accidentally to the trash bin. But sometimes there's real messages in the dreams, and it's useful to analyze them. Justin G says, what brand of glasses are you wearing? I have a big head and these would look good on me. I've got a big head too. I think these are Boss. The other ones are Boss. Oh, these are Quicksilver, which is good because I'm being mercurial and hermetic tonight. No. Do you find a sense of humor is key to emotional regulation and balance? Yes, a sense of humor. I don't know what I would do without a sense of humor. So yes, I do think it is absolutely key to remaining emotionally regulated and having some balance. Can a narcissist have a love relationship with another narc? Well, you said love. So, yeah, to the extent that we're talking about love in inverted commas, air quotes, yeah, they do. I mean, I actually personally think that the more common dyad is between narcissist and narcissist. We in the online codependent fawn responding community solipsistically think that the world is full of relationships between narcissists and codependents. But I think there's research on this as well that backs this. That is a relationship format that is guaranteed to not last. Whereas if a cluster B personality sort of person finds another cluster B personality sort of person to get with, the relationship actually will last a lot longer. It's a much more complicated dynamic where they take turns to be predator and prey in different contexts, in different phases of life, under different circumstances. But I actually think that's the more common dynamic is cluster B with cluster B, not cluster B with codependent. Do they experience love? Well, if you believe that love depends on vulnerability in order for there to be intimacy, and that you can only be truly in love if you're truly intimate with another person, then the answer is no, because the NPD is not capable of vulnerability and therefore not capable of true intimacy. Can you suggest someone if therapy with you is not possible? I'm afraid I cannot at this time. I'm sorry. It's one of these things I keep saying I'll do and I'm meaning to do, which is to like have a list on the website of people who are offering online therapy who I've at least spoken to. So I can have the chat and just go, okay, do you know about Cptsd? Did you read the Pete Walker book? Have you, how do you treat people? They don't have to be exactly like on board with what I would do, but at least I can recommend them and go, yeah, are they au fait? Because if you've come, this isn't narcissism. If you've come to Spartan Life Coach and you want something like that, they probably should be watching my videos as well. So I would check for that. How bloody narcissistic? Yeah, I'm only going to put you on the website if you love me and you tell me I'm great. That's how I would do it.
These are the kinds of questions that you could ask Google. Yes, BPD is one of the cluster B personality disorders. Yes, there are 4. There's ASPD, NPD, BPD, and HPD. HPG. Yeah. Can you imitate Eddie Izzard for a couple of sentences? I've just spent the last hour and 10 minutes imitating my dad, Eddie Izzard. What do you mean? Le singe est dans l'arbre. Mais non, le singe est en dessous de la branche. There you go. That's my Eddie Izzard impression. How did Gandalf the Grey become a white wizard? Trauma. Through pain, through suffering, he went on his own hero's journey and was purified in the suffering. He fought the Balrog and survived. And the impurities that were in him were burnt out in the crucible of his challenge. I think he stopped smoking weed, got his shit together. He went straight edge, bro. How do I stop raging at people I love and pushing them away when I need them? Asks Chelsea. This will be probably because you are in a state of being where you have these things inside of you that you are terrified of, but you must live with, and they are called your feelings, your emotions. It's a horrible place to be, a really, really dark place to be. I thought that I was in the worst place when I figured out a couple of years ago, I got really depressed and I had to go back into therapy. And I figured out that I was with the therapist, that I was extremely emotionally illiterate. I was responsive to other people's emotions like a good codependent, but totally numb to my own. So I thought the sliding scale, the spectrum was emotionally literate and then me, emotionally illiterate. I've come to realize that actually, past this point on the scale, there's people who are not only emotionally illiterate, but at varying degrees of terror in the face of their own feelings. If you can learn to reconnect with your feelings safely via methods that I teach or that other people teach, if you can learn to get out of the cycle of your emotional dysregulation, which you are in, you're trapped inside of a cycle of emotional dysregulation, then and stabilize them, which will take some time, you'll start to perceive the world and people a little bit more clearly, and it will clear up for you in time if you do the great work, the alchemical work, the Magnum Opus. My daughter believes she's doing neuro-linguistic programming, but it includes brainwashing. They wash brains? I think mine could do with a fucking scrub. Did you watch the Snowden interview on Rogan? What did you think? I watched some of it. I was a bit bored, to be honest. I watched probably 5-minute chunks. Edward's a very, very intelligent chap. He's not a particularly compelling public speaker, and it was one of the Joe Rogan interviews that I've really looked forward to, and it was me. I just couldn't concentrate. I was like, okay, but yeah, it's interesting. I wonder what an Edward Snowden really is. I wonder what an Edward Snowden really, really is. I wonder if that's what we're told, that's it, that's who he is, that's where he lives, that's what he does. I don't know. I really don't know. I am deeply, deeply suspicious, but then I am a paranoid conspiracy theorist. I am sitting in an office constructed in 1962. Yeah, it looks a bit like a cupboard. What do you think of the Min Tree's analogy of Christian God as a narcissist? I haven't seen it. I haven't seen that. I think if we just go, straight from biblical texts and stories, I mean, many people have said that. There's clear cases of narcissistic injury and narcissistic rage, depending on the story that you are reading. Yeah. But I don't know. Let me add to that. I don't know who they're talking about, right? Because in some of those stories, God has nostrils. And I'm like, is this Zeus or what? The Christian God has nostrils? Like what? It's one of the problems with Christianity, and I have a lot of time for it, and I've studied it because I was dragged up through it. Is it's not it's not one doctrine, it's several doctrines, and these doctrines do not align in their core principles. So there's a schizophrenia in Christian theology. They chose to keep what is it called, the Tanakh, the Jewish Tanakh, and I don't know why. I really don't know why they why they kept that. That's the Old Testament. What Christians call the Old Testament is just the Tanakh, and I'm like, it doesn't. You've got a different cosmology going on here, guys. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. But who am I to judge? But yes, there are clear cases in the Bible of God, being highly narcissistic. Do I think if there is a creator God, that it is capable of narcissism? No, because that would mean that it's got an ego and lives within time and is fragile and vulnerable and has nostrils and demands that people who've pissed him off be killed. And I'm like, why? If you're God and you want people killing, why are you telling your favorite sons to do that? Why don't you just none of it makes sense. It's a very schizophrenic worldview, which I think is why there's been so many problems over the years. So yeah, man, should just take mushrooms like Jesus did and just be like, love, man, love is the answer. Love. The alchemical process of moving from hatred, racism, and sexism, and ismism, and politicism, and divisions. There's just divisions everywhere, man. Just dividing and dividing and dividing, and everybody's competing for like capital resources because that's how we conceptualize the world. This is ideology at its purest. We cannot even structure the words to verbalize how enslaved we are. Likes are capital, followers are capital, time and attention is capital. And that's what we're fighting over, which is why the world is splitting. That's why everything is splitting. It makes me very sad. It makes me very, very, very sad. And I'm very worried, which is why I started crying out of my eyes and a tiny bit out of my nose at the same time earlier, because I can see people trying to wake up and twitching in their fever dream, and they can't quite get to consciousness. And in their struggles to wake up, they suffer. And in their suffering, they lash out and they hurt the people to the left and the right and the front and the back of them. And it's not good. It's not good at all. I really, 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 really don't like seeing all this division. I don't like seeing, like racism is on the rise. I'm like, for fuck's sake, didn't we do that? We have to do it again. Do we have to learn, we're going to have to stick a bunch of people on buses and shove them in camps and then fucking kill them all. And then afterwards go, oh no. Oh, did we do again? Oh, I thought we said we would never. Didn't we all, watch Schindler's List and cry and go, oh, never again. This is the worst thing that humans have ever done. We would never give that man an Oscar. Yay, it's brilliant. We love this. And then we just start quietly building the concentration camps again on the sly. It's truly insane. Truly insane. They're just people. It's just people doing it to people. There's no mystery. There's nothing to be afraid of. They're just people. That's narcissism in religion. Freud called it the narcissism of small differences. Forget about whether God was a narcissist. That's a fucking cop out, really. When that is brought up in religious discussions, was God a narcissist? No, but your motherfuckers are. You're all narcissists because you're all trying to fight to be God's favorite son. You're all trying to fight to be God's favorite daughter. And the closer the religions are to each other, the worse they fight. You notice that? It's like occasionally you'll see there will be Buddhists fighting Jews and there'll be Christians fighting Hindus, but not in the same way that Christians and Muslims have gone at each other, eh? Not in the same way that Jews and Christians and Muslims have gone at each other, eh? It's not the same, is it? It's called the narcissism of small differences, which means if you're somewhat similar to me, my hatred for you is going to be so much worse. Because daddy, look at me. Look at me. No, not them. No, they've got the book wrong. Haven't they, daddy? Kill them. Oh, I'll kill them then, daddy. Who's got the book right? Who's using the right language? Who's saying the right words? It's all the same shit. It's like racism is the same thing. They're the wrong people. How do you know? Well, they speak another language and they eat funny food. I definitely kill them. Kill them. Kill them. Did you say they speak another language? Yes. Why are we still talking? Why aren't they dead? Kill them all. Kill them all. Did you say they eat weird food? I did say that, actually, yeah. Kill them now. People will be like, hey, he's gone a bit apocalyptic. This is the way it's going on the sly. Well, it's not even on the sly. This is what we're looking at now. It's not good. It's not good. And it's part of our unconsciousness because humans are conditioned to war. And we have been at peace for too long. And now we want a war. And if we're not given a war, we're going to tear each other apart. That's what's going to happen next. Well, it is already happening, effectively. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was, it's been emotional. That was an emotional experience for me, and I'm quite tired now. So I've got nothing else to say that's of any use to anybody. So I'm not going to take any more questions. I'm going to go to bed, hermetically seal my eyes in my hermetically sealed chamber, and disappear from this reality and return anew tomorrow as another me. I hope that was useful and you took something from it. Please do the work that I gave you to do, because it will make your life better and it will make the world better. Try to go from entitlement and narcissism and solipsism and self-obsession to thinking about others and the world, and trying to tune in, however it takes you to do it, whatever you need to do to tune into love and appreciation and gratitude. Say thank you. Say thank you for being here like a grown-up adult human being person. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Richard, for speaking at us. Thank you, the other commenters that I was talking to. I appreciate this platform. I appreciate all of you. Thank you. And try and have that thought inside of your mind, that this is a privilege. This is a privilege. There's a real war on now. There's a real war that needs to be fought. But hopefully it won't be fought in the physical realm. It will remain psychic as it is now in the psychological realm. And this one, it's important to win. It's very, very important to win. This is a big one. This is the way that we're going to win it. You've got to transmute these base emotions and these base desires to something higher. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. Please be careful what you give your time and your attention to. They are your most precious commodities. I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.